Hello, Eric Gimbal, ericgimbal.com, and today, thanks to photosrat.com, I'm going to review the Nikon D7500. And this is the body only, so I will try it with Nikon lens 50mm 1.8. Let's start. So I'm going to open the box in front of you, in front of the camera. So here is the manual with the guarantee card. I open the small cardboard, and then in there, as you see, it's perfectly packed. Nikon always packed very well all its gear. Here you have a camera strap with the Nikon, so if you wear it, you make advert for them. Here, this is very important. This is to hide the viewfinder. When you're making a night photography or long exposure, it's recommendable to put that in front of the viewfinder so no light goes into the camera body. Then you have the charger. Wow, that's nice because it's a charger. You can actually charge a battery without connecting to the camera. I mean, you remove the battery from the camera and put it in the charger. I like it because if you have two batteries, you can walk around with your camera while the battery is at home. A cable for the charger, then a USB cable, then obviously a battery, and we're getting to the most important part now is the camera body, which is perfectly packed. As you can see, there is some bubble protection here, the typical plastic bubble. This is just a body, so it's nice feel. I like it. The screen is touchable. You can actually flip it, but you cannot turn it the whole way. You can flip it up and down, but not sideways. And you have a screen on top, and the buttons. The ergonomy is very nice. So now I'm going to tell you about the specs, and I will show you after pictures and video I've made with it, so I will comment my impression. Let's start. So I'm going to tell you about this more about this D7500. Very often it's hard for me to say 7500. I always say 7500. Why? Because in French and in Spanish I say that. English, they always say they cut in hundreds, so 7500. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about this camera. I will show you some pictures and videos I've made to give you my impression, and I'll give you my conclusion. You know, I don't really like to give all the technical details, all this. You actually can find them on the website of the company that makes the cameras. So I prefer to tell you the most important features, and then tell you about my impression, what I think, and get to the conclusion whether I think it's a great or bad or super great or super bad camera. Nowadays there are no bad cameras. There are cameras that are nicer to use or disappointing, but the image quality normally is acceptable in most cameras. But in that range of price and cameras, I think you cannot be disappointed normally. It's more like a question of feeling of when you are actually using the camera. So this is an APS-C camera. I must tell you, this is known as the small brother or sister of the Nikon D500. Actually, it has the same sensor. So I'm going to give you a small history. Nikon had started with the had the D100, the D200, the D300, the D300's. That was D300's was the top of the range APS-C camera for Nikon, and many journalists and sport photographers actually used that camera, and there was no replacement during many years, and they never understood why. Then Nikon at that time, soon after, not telling anything about the 300, it was still being made, but there was no replacement. They issued the series 7000, and so they had the 7000, the 7100, the 7200, then no 73, no 74, and then the 7500. And when the 7000 series came out, people say, yeah, but it's like plastic, it doesn't look like the 300, it's not a replacement, this is something different. Nikon never stated if it was a replacement or not. They just let it go. But many people were still claiming, until Nikon understood that they had to issue something. They didn't make a D400, but they came out with the D500, which is the top of the range APS-C camera for Nikon. I will say for any APS-C, but maybe someone would get offended. I'm not a pro Nikon or pro Canon or pro anything. For me, they're just tools. I do think the D500 is probably the best APS-C camera you can find. So now this 7500 came out, and well, now like almost a year ago, and the question is it a small brother, the D500? Is it very different? Is it worth buying this instead of the D500? So I'm going to tell you my impression. So I'll give you some tech details, I will show you some picture and video, and give you my impression as I go, okay? So sensor, it's a 20.9 megapixel sensor, the same as the D500 as I said. Video, it does 4K UHD, but this is cropped video. When you're in 4K, it means take into account that the APS-C already has a crop factor of 1.5 or 1.6, can't remember. I always mix up with Canon. One is 1.5, the other one is 1.6, and this has a crop factor of 1.5 when you are doing 4K video. It means like if you have a 50mm, you end up having the equivalent of maybe 100. So if you actually wanted to do wide angle video, you're going to need a really wide angle lens, okay, because it's going to crop in 4K. ISO from 100 to 51,200 ISO native. You can force it to up to a million, I don't know, but I've tried. I think the quality is great. I would not push over this top 51,200 they have as a native. Actually, to keep safe, I would not go over 12,000. But quality is surprisingly, it's good. I think at 51,000 it will save you the shot and have a testimonial picture. But up to 12,000 quality is quite okay. So I think I would keep around this. But nice to be able to go that high. It does time-lapse. Well, there are many features that many pro will say I don't need it, and many features that beginners or not so beginners but amateur will say, oh great, I have that. Burst, it does 8 frames per second burst, which is really good. I think it's nice. Many pro were up to recently with 3 or 5 frames per second, so I think this is great. And it does, if you're in RAW file, it does 50 pictures in a row before stopping to empty the buffer, and if you're in JPEG, up to 100 JPEG. So I think it's good. You can actually trigger quite a time to get the right picture, the right moment you want it. There is a cleaning sensor system. The raw file are in 12 or in 14 bits, up to the way you configure it. You have a system picture control, which is auto, standard, intense, monochrome, portrait. There are profiles for the picture control. I think it's good for some people. Other people say I don't need that. I work in RAW. I did everything in my computer. I don't need that. Well, it's there. If you want it, it's there. It's there. Memory card. It uses SD format and it supports 2 types: the SDHC and the SDXC, both UHS-1. There's only 1 slot for a card, so if you need 2 slots, you need to go for the D500. But well, it's not top of the range camera, so 1 slot. The viewfinder is 100%, so I think it's great. Very often people, they take a picture and there's still a lot of round, so they need to crop in the computer, so they lose resolution. So to have a 100% viewfinder is always great, because you know this, what you see is what you get. I know that many people say, but maybe it's safer to have a small extra even if you don't see it. But if you're in that range of camera, is that normally you know what you're doing. Although I'll say after that beginner would love that camera. Speed from 30 seconds up to 8,000th of a second. Then you have bulb, time, and X250. Synchro flash up to 250th of a second, but you can force it to 320th of a second. It does change some things, I can't remember what, but the standard is 250, you can force to 320. How can you shoot? You can shoot single, say you click, shot is made, continuous, slow continuous, fast continuous mode shooting. Then you have a Q mode, which is silent, and then you have a continuous Q mode, a silent mode. It means that it makes less noise when you press the shutter. Then you have the possibility to lift the mirror to make your pictures. For night photography or long exposure photography, it's interesting, especially if you don't want to be in live view. I mean, to be able to lift the mirror is always useful in that kind of camera or the kind of people who use them. It's weather sealed, which is great news, but don't forget that a camera is weather sealed only if the lens is also weather sealed, because if you don't put a weather sealed lens, then some water can get in there in the lens and then pass through the bayonet, go through the camera body. So it's sealed. So if you want to go to places where it's very humid or rainy, it would be good to have a sealed lens too. Modes, well, the typical auto, manual, aperture priority, speed priority, the P mode when it's actually like an automatic, but then you can decide on the ISO, and then you have scene mode, which is interesting because there are many scene mode, like portrait. They have like close-up portrait, nighttime portrait, sport portrait. They have all this. So and then you have many things. So people say, why do I need that if I'm a pro? Well, if you're not a pro, it's great to have this because it helps you learn, because maybe you preset the scene and then after you check the EXIF on your picture and say, oh, this is the way the camera was configured for this shot. So you learn if you get interesting in it. Otherwise, you use it as a scene and you let it do it. Okay. The autofocus, 51 dots, 51 points, unique, dynamic zone when you can actually decide 9, 21 or 51 dots points. You have 3D follow. It's like a space autofocus. You actually detect movement in your picture and get focused at the right place. Then you have a zone focusing, autofocus, zone focusing. You can group them, and then you can also have automatic zone focusing. Integrated flash. Many people say, oh, you always forget to speak about the flash. Yes, there is a small flash. Okay, I never speak much about flashes because actually when you look at it, these integrated flashes give a very bad light. Not this Nikon, every small flash, because the size is so small that it makes shadows really harsh. So it's not nice, but it's safe. It means it can help you save the picture if you don't have any external flash, and you can actually get that and you get the picture. Or you can use it to trigger another flash in slave mode. So you have this flash to trigger, and then it triggers the other flash. So video. In 4K you have 30, 25 and 24 images per second. I remind that 24 is the cinema format. But in 4K you have just this, you don't have slow motion. In 1080 Full HD you have 60, 50, 30, 25 and 24. So you can actually have slow motion at 60 or 50, depends if you're using 25 or 30 on the area where you are. Video format, MOV format and MP4.
Now I'm with handheld. The sound is the camera microphone directly. As you can see, the problem with this kind of body is that they are not stabilized. So you actually need a stabilized lens if you want to do video, or a gimbal, or a tripod or whatever. Although if you use a stabilized lens, I don't think you will get the same quality stabilization as you will get on the brands.
The screen, 3.2 touchable screen. It's nice. I prefer to have a completely orientable screen. You can flip it this way, but when you want to flip it down, it goes only this. So it means if you wanted to make a picture of a crowd, for example, maybe it would be nicer it could be as flat as this, but the other way, okay? So you can put it above your head and actually look at it. And connection, you have it's all there. You have I'll open it. You have well, the USB-B, you have HDMI, you have a connector for external microphone and a connector for audio output. It's great to have audio output, so you can actually check if the audio is great. You have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and the weight is 720 grams. You can actually add also a grip. The weight is nice. So let's speak about ergonomy a bit. I like it. It fits great in your hand. If you look at it, here you have the trigger, you have the wheels for aperture and speed, and here you have the small button for well, here the interrupter is there, the switch. Here you have the small button for recording. You have ISO dedicated button. You have compensation, exposure compensation button. So it's really at hand. It's nice. Here you have the AE lock, and then several buttons here, but it's nice. What I'm not convinced about is that for safety nowadays most cameras put like a lock on the wheels so you don't accidentally move anything. But this is not a lock. You need to keep pressing the button. So if I'm in P mode, I want to go to S mode, I have to press and turn at the same time. It's not like you click and then it's unlocked, same as on my Olympus. You unlock it and then you move and then you can lock it again. This you have to keep pressing. This one is more or less acceptable, but this one, which decides the mode, like you can have a single mode, continuous shooting, slow, fast. You have another lock here, and actually, well, you need to use your thumb to move it, because if you actually press with your index, point finger, then you have to move with the middle finger. It's not practical at all. You really need to press with your thumb. Here you have depth of field, here you have the autofocus and manual focus, and I think the ergonomy is nice. I mean, this is the only thing I'm not really happy about. It's just getting used to it. So my conclusion is, who is this camera for? Well, I think there are two public. One, two possible clients. I think one is the person who's buying his first digital camera. That sounds incredible, but I say, how can you buy your first digital camera and be this? Well, when you see that, if I look at Nikon, you have the 3000 series, the 5000 series, and then this 7000 series, and then you have over that. And someone says, yeah, but I'll buy a 3000, and then maybe a year time I'll buy a 5000, and then I'll end up buying a 7000 series. So why don't I buy straight away the 7000 series? And I think that's a good idea. Why? Because you have many features that are okay for pros, and many features that you find in lower series. So they actually help you learn and have some things that are automatic. And you say, I'll buy this camera because I'll keep it for several years. And when I say several years, many people smile. But the picture you see now, I've shown in videos, I've made them the same day as I did the 3500 by Nikon that I'll publish after this one. No? So I did this picture the same day as I made the 3500 by Nikon. And on the kit I got for the 3500, it says, guarantee, 10 years. So if they give 10 years guarantee to that camera, to this one, and I don't know, but to that 3500, I think if they give 10 years guarantee in Spain, at least, maybe other country not, they know that some people are going to keep it for many years. And I think a 7500, yes, you could keep it 10 years without problem, because you don't have to worry if it's up to date. The resolution is enough. The autofocus is great. You don't have the top uncropped 4K video. Yes, maybe later you want to make video and then you change camera, but otherwise, if we speak about photography, you're fine. So you can forget about getting a new body and concentrate on buying new lenses. Yes, if you make that decision, it's important you forget about full frame, because this is a DX format. It means if you use DX lenses on an FX camera like a D5 or D800, then you will get a crop. So you won't actually, your lens won't let you use fully the camera, I would say, no? So But actually a full frame is like a craziness. I mean, all amateurs, they want full frame, full frame, full frame. They don't realize that they don't need it most of the time. I've worked full frame with Canon for several years, and now I'm on Micro Four Third, and I say, oh god, how much weight, extra weight and extra money I spent on full frame I actually did not need. And I think most people don't need full frame, except for their ego, or because they don't know and people tell them full frame. But honestly, a good APS-C camera is much better than any full frame, because it leaves you money for good lenses. DX lenses, Nikon DX lenses are normally cheaper than FX lenses, so it means, and you can put some FX lenses on that camera, but take care, be aware of that. It means if you buy an FX lens, you may be able to use it later on FX camera, but if you buy a DX, it's thought for DX. Okay, so knowing this, get this camera and get good lenses. Take your time. Like this one is a 50mm I tested with. That's great for portrait, and get other lenses. You don't have to, it doesn't need to be a Nikon, it can be a Tamron or Sigma, and get lenses and get used to them and enjoy your camera. And I think any people, even a beginner, will love this camera. And people say, is it not too much of a camera for a beginner? No, it isn't. I swear it isn't. It's a great camera. And what is the other potential client for this camera? I would say the pro. Why a pro is going to use this mid-range camera? Because I think it's over mid-range. Second, because some pro that are starting, they don't have too much budget, but they know they need two camera bodies. And I think it's a mistake to get a D500 and a D3000 as a backup camera, because if the D500 fails, with the D3000 you cannot do anything you promised to your clients. It's better to have two of the same camera. It's better to have two 7500 bodies. One is a backup, or use both at the same time, or whatever, and it's better to have this. Or if you have just one body, as a pro, it's if your work can be repeated, if there's a camera failure and another day can remake the picture, you don't actually need a backup body in that case. It's not. But if you're a wedding photographer, for example, a sport photographer, of course you need it, because you don't say repeat the football match because my camera is failing, or get married again because my camera failed. You know, I think for pros, this camera is great too, because they can start with that and they can keep going with that. And it's true that a D500 maybe leaves 400,000 shutter actuation, and then you need to change the shutter, but this one will be less. But do you think all the pro actually shoot that much? Even if you have a lot of work, depends on the kind of work you're doing. If you're doing portrait, you're not going to burst mode and 5,000 pictures for one portrait, so you can keep this camera also for many years. And if you don't keep it for many years, at least when you're starting, you cannot charge as much as if you had many years on the road. You'll be able to save money for a better body. If you put all your money in a higher body, then and you don't sell as much, maybe you will also use your body and you end up changing it anyway, but you will have no money. So it makes more sense to start with this. So I think this camera is weather sealed, it's great. I think a pro can use that perfectly with no shame. Maybe you can put the grip on it to get second battery and keeps more time running, all this. I think this is a great camera also for pros. So my conclusion is this camera a great small brother or sister of the D500? Yes, this is a great honorable camera as a small sister or a small brother. I do think that many people should consider this camera, especially if they cannot afford the D500. This is a great camera, and if you look for an APS-C camera, this is a great camera. I think many people don't realize that the camera is you. The camera is as good as you make it, and this camera has all the base, so you can make it a great camera if you know how to use it, if you know its limits. There are not that many limits, and I think you should get it. Well, that's it. Thank you very much, photosula.com, for lending me the camera. Please, if you have not done yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's a subscribe button down there, a small bell. If you touch it, you'll get notified when I upload new videos. And my website, ericgimbal.com. If you have any question, leave a comment below, send me an email to info@ericgimbal.com. And below in the description, I've put some links to other part of my channel, information about my gear, social network contact, and all this information. Thank you very much. Bye.